preacher on Easter Sunday was saying he was preaching that Jesus was not a black man. I saw this well-known preacher on Easter Sunday was saying he was preaching that Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, the death, burial, and resurrection that they preach about was all about the persecution of a black man, and that how Jesus was a black man, and that his evidence that Jesus was a black man was because he didn't get a fair trial by the Roman government, and that he used that, begin to manipulate the black men in the room and start declaring no weapon formed against the black men will prosper, and no legal weapon will form against the black men will prosper, and all of this Marxist, fascist nonsense that he was spewing from the pulpit. And I was watching as men stood up in the room and they're shedding tears over this nonsense, and my heart is broken because I'm thinking, man, what you're hearing right now in this moment is not even consistent with the word of God. I know some of you got him hanging on your wall, a black man with locks, but Jesus was not a black man.
So I know I'm late, right? Because this video is old. But Philip Anthony Mitchell of 2819 Church claimed that Jesus was not a black man, and then frames anyone who says otherwise as manipulative, Marxist, racist. So what I do professionally is I'm a logician, okay? I teach logic for a living, and I help you to identify logical fallacies. So let's do that with this video. The first fallacy is a straw man fallacy. So notice what happens. He doesn't actually refute the historical claim. Instead, he reframes it emotionally. He says, I once heard a pastor say that Jesus was black, and that was manipulative. But here's the problem. Calling someone Marxist or fascist does not make it false. So that's a straw man fallacy. Attacking the tone of a message instead of actually addressing the evidence behind that message. Point number two, the loaded term Jewish, right? Then comes the sleight of hand. Over and over and over, he uses the term Jewish, knowing full well that when modern audiences hear the term Jewish, they picture European faces like this, Ashkenazi communities, Hasidic communities.
Shalom, shalom, Israel. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto YAHAWAH, Hashem, Quadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, great millstone. Shalom to my YAHAWAH, who are diligently waiting to be delivered from this final captivity, as well as a speckled bird that may look like the other nations, but are actually Asherallah. This is Brother Kawakab coming at you with another lesson. Today's lesson is going to be on this, and you know, I'm not going to lie, the funny thing about this is that I knew about this, and I kind of what's the word? I basically learned this, all right, in school. When I was going to school, I was taught this by my teacher. The teacher had basically explained that, hey, you know, everyone, your homework to do is to look for a news article, okay, just any news article, and then just explain, is this a factual news article or is this an emotional based pathos, all this type of news article and stuff like that? Because oftentimes when people are, because like say for example, like this, let's just take the Philip Anthony Mitchell's sermon that he just had right there. When talking about it, when talking about it, he, number one, he is an authoritative figure, all right, not necessarily authoritative, but you get the point where he's like, he's a reputable source. So if someone hears something from him, they're gonna say like, okay, well, yeah, he must know what he's talking about because he has all these people following him and whatnot and stuff like that. So people are, so his reputation is that of quote unquote quality by the general masses and stuff like that. Although we see that that's clearly not the case. But again, that's just the thing in Christian churches in general, where, you know, the way that things go is that when you trust in a specific thing, you trust in a specific person, like the news, for an example, to say that, okay, well, we're going to report on stuff factually, and you trust them to be accurate and factual and fair. But very clearly, that's not always the case, given that with this as an example, there are going to be times where people are going to be biased and not give the full details and stuff like that. Hence, you got stuff like this where Philip Anthony Mitchell is going to use tactics to push a specific narrative, all right, just as he pointed out. The thing about this is how rather than actually go for specific things or for specific talking points, you instead go for look at the Israelites that are known for talking badly, for screaming and being rude and disrespectful and stuff like that, where they attack either someone's credibility or someone's tone, as this Jake had said, where like he didn't go and prove anything that he said. He just attacked the messenger. He attacked the tone. He attacked literally anything besides proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Yahawashi was not a so-called black man. He did not prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt. He just said, people, you need to believe me when I say that he is definitely not a so-called black man, because look, I'm talking to you guys soft. I'm talking to you this, I'm talking to you that, okay? I'm trying to appeal to your emotions and your feelings. I'm not actually substantiating any of the things that I'm saying with any cold hard evidence. All right, so as a result of that, or relative evidence. That's basically how he was basically going about it. All right, so as a result of that, that's where you have to be aware of this type of stuff. And even with news articles, you also have to look at how they frame stuff. Like when you hear someone say, oh, someone you can hear how they talk about certain things in the news, like a man was killed, but said man had a known history for dealing drugs or doing this and the third, so that they can push you to not feeling sorry for Jake if the person that was killed was a Jake and whatnot and stuff like that. So like these are the things that you have to be aware of when you're listening to certain type of when you're trying to process information. Is the information being presented to you in an emotional way, or is it being presented to you objectively, leaving emotions out of it and stuff like that? Of course there are going to be something like the people reporting news like, okay, well, a little kid was killed in a terrible accident and whatnot. Of course, like that is going to naturally make you feel bad, but also you have to understand, like, okay, well, what led up to it, all the stuff, and basically all the facts, rather than just saying, well, because the kid died, I'm just gonna feel sorry for it and whatnot. All right, so again, just something to think about. But continuing on, 2 Corinthians 2 verse 11, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. And this is the thing here where we have to be aware of these devils trying to deceive us. Even Jake has learned Esau's tricks, and he's basically doing the exact same thing in order to say, hey, everyone, follow me, listen to me, do what I tell you to do and whatnot, rather than listen to some objective fact. All right, listen to my deception instead. All right, and as a result of that, that's where you have so many people that still follow after the Christian church, that still go to fill up their Christian church pocket, the Christian church's pockets with money and stuff like that. All right, so this is the thing that we're seeing. We're seeing Esau's tactics work even now still, where our people, they can't even understand like when they're being manipulated, when they're being deceived. All right, now Galatians chapter 4 verse 16, am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? And oftentimes that's basically how things work. We are the enemy when we're saying, hey, Yahawashi was a so-called black man, this, that, and the third, or whatever. All right, and rather than wanting to listen to us, they just get so angry because it destroys their worldview of Esau being the top of everything, being the epitome of good, righteousness, and all that stuff. Where now they're fighting against logic. They're fighting against logic in order to keep the thing. And I don't know if you ever like thought about that. It definitely sounds abnormal to hear that. Okay, well, you told someone there's an issue with something. You told someone that there's something going on, there's something wrong going on, that you told someone whatever, but yet they don't care about all of the facts. They don't care that someone is manipulating them, lying to them, trying to to destroy and to deceive them. The only thing that matters to them is, oh well, I like thinking this way, so I'm going to continue to think this way, rather than actually take a step back and understand it and acknowledge that the way that I'm thinking is in fact wrong. So because you're ruining their fantasy or whatever, then they hate you. They end up hating you. All right. Now, continuing on. So yes, you become their enemy for destroying that fantasy land. Jeremiah chapter 48 verse 10, cursed be he that doeth the work of the Lord deceitfully, and cursed be he that keepeth back his sword from blood. All right, so over here, again, another aspect of it where being a liar and a deceiver, all right, the Lord sees that. The Lord sees our people actively choosing to lie to our people and tell our people all these different falsehoods and different doctrines of belief, rather than just being straight up and telling them, hey, the Lord YAHAWAH, he does not like when you do this, isn't like when you do that, or whatever. And as a result of that, our people, they end up what's the word, being led astray, led down the wrong path, where, okay, well, rather than acknowledging the things that we should do, well, I'm just going to go and do whatever I want to do, because this is what these other options I'm doing, it is making me money, it's making people love me, making people want to side with me and do whatever I want to do, rather than allowing myself to just still be suffering and stuff like that. Well, this is what the scriptures said about suffering, all right? First Peter 3 verse 14, but and if ye suffer for righteousness' sake, happy are ye, and be not afraid of their terror, neither be troubled. Basically, you want to suffer for the right reasons. You want to suffer for the sake of YAHAWAH, YAHAWASHI. All right, and when you do that, then that's where the reward is going to be coming in, flooding in. All right, overwhelming you, as it says in Deuteronomy chapter 28. All right, 1 through 15, where that the blessings are going to overtake us. It's going to be so much that we could ever ask for. All right, but again, our people would rather seek that temporary high, that temporary fulfillment, rather than the permanent or eternal blessings from YAHAWAH. All right, so once again, something to think about, something to weigh. All right, continuing on. Matthew chapter 24 verse 24, for there shall arise false MANASHAHs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. And that's another thing, where if it was possible, the elect would be deceived, but because the elect are incapable of being deceived, then they're not going to be deceived. And that's why you have these mega churches and stuff like that filled with so many people are still being led astray, where even that's you really have to understand. It's funny how you have random people, okay, random people like this Jake, random people like me, that are able to just call out, and so many other brothers, so many other brothers that are able to just call out someone like Philip Anthony Mitchell for basically being deceptive. Okay, so many people are able to tell that stuff like this are lies, despite his reputation, despite it having such a big following. All right, yes, a lot of people do still follow him, but still, just the simple fact that that so many of us are able to see his lies and stuff like that and call him out for it, that just goes to show how the Lord is only dealing with the elect. All right, Lord willing, I'm a part of that number. All right, So John 8 verse 44, ye are your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there was no truth in him. When he speaketh the lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And Esau is the father of lies. All right. He's the one that's constantly lying, telling people, oh, this and the third, leading people astray, saying a whole bunch of stuff that is contrary, that's just flat out contrary to the scriptures. Okay. And you don't want to be a part of that. You don't want to be associated with that type of behavior, all right, where someone is actively and openly, saying something that is just objectively false. All right. You don't want to be a part of that. You don't want the Lord to allow to forsake you into that delusion. Which actually, let's get that. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 11, and for this cause Yahawadah shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. Okay, and this is what we're seeing the people fall for. The people are falling for this major lie. All right, the major lie of Yahawashi being a so-called white man. All right. It was Revelation chapter 1 verse 13, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girded about the paps with the golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, and as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, and as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Basically, the thing here is that his hair, his head hairs, his hair and his beard and stuff like that, they were white like wool. They were and that was his hairs. Let me actually just show you the precept. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 31, the hoary head is a crown of glory, if it be found in the way of righteousness. Basically, the thing here is that Yahawashi, his hair basically grayed younger than it should have because of the wisdom that he had. Hoary over here, its definition grayish white. All right, so it's basically from as I said before, wisdom, not necessarily old age, because he died, I believe it was at 33. All right, so he had gray hair so early because of all the wisdom that he had, and as a result of that, his hairs were white or gray and stuff like that. All right, so as a result of that, that's where we got that in Revelation chapter 13, Revelation chapter 1 verse 14, and then we see his feet was like on to fine brass. His feet was where is it? His feet like on defined brass, as if they were burning in the furnace, and brass is brown. And then on top of that, it was even darker because it said burnt in a furnace, so it was even darker than brass. All right. So as a result of that, yes, Yahawashi was definitely as the scriptures say, he was definitely a so-called black man. All right. So with that, I pray that's most edifying. I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto YAHAWAH, YAHAWASHI, double honors to the elders and apostles, great most notable, and shalom.